Betrayal rarely arrives with warning. It slips in silently, wearing the face of a friend, a lover, or a trusted ally. It doesn't strike from your enemies. It comes from those you once believed would protect you. One moment you're walking alongside someone. The next you're left standing alone, confused by their cold withdrawal or the sudden knife in your back. And yet, the signs were always there. You just didn't know how to read them. Carl Jung, a pioneer of analytical psychology, believed betrayal is not simply an act of cruelty or a lapse in loyalty. It is a reflection of the human psyche's deeper, darker mechanics. Hidden insecurities, unresolved shadows, masked intentions, they all contribute to the pattern. Once you understand the psychological blueprint behind betrayal, you stop seeing it as a personal failure. You begin to recognize it for what it truly is, a revelation of the betrayer's inner world. This is not just about protection, it's about clarity. Understanding why people betray you is the first step towards seeing people clearly, and more importantly, protecting your peace. The following chapters explore the hidden forces that drive betrayal, rooted deeply in Jung's theories and the raw, uncomfortable truths of human nature. 1. The hidden resentment beneath familiar faces. Betrayal doesn't always start with hatred. Often it begins with admiration and quietly decays into bitterness. You see, people don't usually betray you because of who you are in your worst moments. They betray you because of who you become in your best. The confident, evolving, successful version of yourself can trigger something unresolved in someone else. That tension, that discomfort, is the first tremor beneath the surface. Carl Jung called this dynamic the confrontation with the shadow, the unacknowledged side of the human psyche. It's the part of a person they refuse to accept, and because they can't own it, they end up casting it outward. Here's how it unfolds. Someone close to you, maybe a friend, maybe a family member, has spent years presenting a certain image to the world. They're kind, helpful, selfless, but deep down, they have suppressed frustrations, quiet insecurities, a longing to be seen and valued. As you grow, when you begin to shine in areas where they feel invisible, their mask begins to crack. It starts subtly, a delayed response to good news, a backhanded compliment disguised as a joke, an odd silence when everyone else is cheering you on. You sense something's off, but you ignore it, because this person is close, and closeness creates blind spots. But here's the truth. What they see in you, they wish they could find in themselves. Your progress makes them feel stuck. Your courage makes them feel small. And instead of facing that discomfort with introspection, they look outward and blame you. Not because you've harmed them, but because your light reveals their shadow. That's when betrayal begins, not with a dagger, but with detachment. They begin pulling away, or worse, building a case in their mind to justify their resentment. They tell themselves you've changed, that you're arrogant, ungrateful, selfish. These are projections, deflections of their own feelings. What makes it more painful is that you were never trying to compete. You were just growing. But growth, for those who have stayed the same too long, feels like abandonment. Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The betrayal from someone who once supported you is rarely about what you did. It's about what they couldn't admit to themselves. So what do? You notice. Not every change in energy needs confrontation, but it does require awareness. Noticing the shift, the emotional distance, the subtle undercutting, it all matters. You can't prevent someone from turning their inner turmoil into outer sabotage, but you can refuse to take the blame for it. Protect your growth by understanding that not everyone will celebrate it, especially those who haven't begun their own. 2. The mask of affection. Some betrayals aren't born of emotion, they're born of convenience. Not everyone who smiles at you cares for you. Some wear charm like armor, only to drop it the moment it no longer benefits them. These are not spontaneous acts of disloyalty. They are premeditated withdrawals of fake intimacy. Carl Jung called this the operation of the persona, the social mask we wear to navigate the world, often hiding our true intentions beneath a curated performance. The danger of this betrayal lies in its subtlety. It mimics real connection. The manipulator makes you feel special, indispensable, chosen, not because they truly value you, but because they need something. Maybe it's emotional comfort, maybe it's access, influence, status, or protection. But once your role in their personal script is fulfilled, the performance ends. And the exit is swift, often without closure. You might recall someone in your life who always knew the right things to say. They cheered you on, listened to your problems, offered unsolicited help, but only when it was easy. When life required reciprocity, when you were the one in need, they vanished, or worse, turned the tables. Suddenly, you were the selfish one, the ungrateful one. The problem: this type of betrayal doesn't feel like a wound. It feels like erasure. You begin to question if any of it was ever real. Jung believed that personas are necessary, but dangerous when we begin to identify with them too strongly. A person who operates from a false self is always negotiating, always calculating. To them, human relationships are transactions, not connections. And in a world of transactions, loyalty is only as strong as its return on investment. So, how do you spot this kind of betrayer? Don't watch what they say when things are easy. Watch how they respond when they're denied. When you say no, when you set a boundary. That's when the performance slips. That's when you see the shadow behind the smile. They might lash out, withdraw, guilt you, replace you. But each reaction tells you this: their affection was conditional. You were useful. You were never sacred. It's not your job to unmask these people. It's your job to remember that consistency speaks louder than charm, that actions matter more than closeness, and that betrayal doesn't always come with warning signs. It sometimes comes gift-wrapped. Walk away from those who only love you when it's easy to do so. That's not love, that's leverage. 3. Jealousy in disguise. There's a kind of betrayal that's not loud or sudden. It doesn't explode, it seeps in, slow and silent. It looks like subtle disinterest, sarcasm, or even well-meaning jokes. But at its root, it's jealousy. Carl Jung described jealousy not as a petty flaw, but as a profound psychological conflict. It is what emerges when someone sees in you a part of themselves they abandoned or never developed. To them, your life becomes a mirror they cannot bear to look into, because in that reflection, they see what they could have been, or what they'll never be. You might think jealousy is easy to spot, but the most dangerous kind is the one dressed in affection. It's a friend who congratulates you but hesitates, a sibling who listens to your plans but never asks about the results, a partner who supports your goals until those goals require independence. At first, they might make small comments. You've changed. Don't forget where you came from. Must be nice. These aren't observations. They're attempts to remind you that your success is unwelcomed if it shifts the balance between you. Jealousy transforms admiration into resentment, and when left unchecked, resentment turns into betrayal. Not necessarily dramatic betrayal, but betrayal through disengagement, undermining, gossip, or quiet sabotage. Imagine telling a friend about a new opportunity and seeing them sigh instead of smile, or hearing from others that they've been downplaying your efforts behind your back. You didn't hurt them. You just reminded them of the version of themselves they gave up on. This isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to recognize, because staying close to someone who secretly resents you is like standing on a rug that's slowly being pulled away. You don't need to confront everyone who behaves this way, but you must protect your peace. Observe who celebrates you in your victories as much as they comfort you in your pain. Real loyalty isn't tested by suffering, it's tested by your growth. Jung's work reminds us that the parts of ourselves we fail to integrate often find destructive expression. Jealousy, in this sense, is grief. It's mourning over a potential self. And sadly, many will destroy their relationships before admitting that truth. You cannot shrink to make others comfortable, and you should never sabotage your path to preserve someone else's ego. Jealousy might be quiet, but betrayal never is. 4. Control in disguise. Not every betrayal comes from envy. Sometimes it comes from a need to dominate. You may have met someone who seemed endlessly generous, helpful, even protective, until you grew stronger, until you no longer needed them in the way they quietly demanded. And then something shifted. Suddenly, the warmth became cold, the support turned into judgment, and the guidance became control. This isn't love. It's possession dressed as loyalty. Carl Jung spoke often about power not as an external force, but as a dynamic that plays out in our unconscious patterns. Many people don't crave closeness, they crave control. And when they feel that grip slipping, betrayal becomes their last attempt to restore the imbalance. Here's what it looks like. At first, they're your mentor, your rock, your guide. They help you in moments of weakness and genuinely appear to want your best. But what you don't see, what they may not even see, is that they're feeding on your dependence. You becoming stronger disrupts that balance. It threatens their identity. They no longer get to feel needed, admired, superior. And so, to protect their own ego, they shift. The shift isn't always obvious. It can come as criticism masked as concern. Are you sure you're ready for this? It can come as guilt tripping. You've changed. I guess success really does go to your head. It can even show up as outright sabotage, subtle, deniable, but deliberate. They might withdraw when you succeed, or stir drama when you set a boundary. Why? Because your independence signals something terrifying to them: irrelevance. Jung believed many relationships unconsciously reenact power battles rooted in our own unmet needs, often parental or early relational wounds. People who never felt powerful in their early lives may spend adulthood seeking relationships where they can dominate, even if they call it love or support. But when love is conditional on obedience, it's no longer love. Ask yourself this: who supports you only when you're beneath them? Who turns cold when you no longer ask for their help? Who resists your evolution because it makes them feel small? That's not loyalty. That's leverage. Real love doesn't require control. Real support doesn't retreat when you rise. And true connection doesn't need to be the louder voice in the room. It celebrates when you find your own. To protect yourself from this kind of betrayal, you must become comfortable with disappointing those who want to hold you back. You must recognize that some people only love the version of you that needs them. Walk forward anyway. 5. Projection games. Sometimes betrayal has nothing to do with what you've done, and everything to do with what someone refuses to admit about themselves. This is the betrayal born from projection. Carl Jung described projection as one of the most common psychological defense mechanisms. When a person sees in you the very traits they cannot acknowledge in themselves and then acts as if you are the problem. You may have experienced it without knowing what it was. You're suddenly accused of being selfish by someone who constantly takes, or called disloyal by someone who gossips behind your back. The moment feels bizarre, disorienting, because what they're accusing you of isn't just inaccurate, it's exactly what they are doing. That's projection. Imagine someone struggling with their own envy, but instead of facing that discomfort, they accuse you of arrogance. Or a partner who is emotionally unavailable, but tells you you're the one who's distant. The betrayal comes not from what's real, but from the parts of themselves they refuse to own. And why do people do this? Because it's easier to fight an enemy on the outside than to confront a demon on the inside. Jung believed that the shadow isn't evil in itself. It is simply the side of us we do not want others to see. The danger begins when someone's shadow becomes so unbearable to acknowledge, they force it onto others. You become their scapegoat, their narrative, their justification. This betrayal isn't always loud. It can be quiet and sustained, a slow erosion of your integrity in their eyes. They build stories about you, twist your intentions, reinterpret your actions, all to protect their fragile self-image. And the more they need to preserve that image, the more distorted their version of you becomes. Here's the painful truth. They don't see you. They see their own shadow wearing your face. What do? You stop trying to defend yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. You let their version of you die in their mind because the battle to correct it will only drain you. You also learn to spot the signs. People who project often lack emotional accountability. They rarely apologize. Their stories shift when you hold them to facts, and they use language that focuses on accusation, not introspection. If you consistently feel like you're being blamed for things that don't feel true, pause. Consider whose pain you're carrying. Consider whose shame is being handed to you as a weapon. You are not the mirror of someone else's unhealed trauma. Let them clean their own reflection. 6. Narcissistic betrayal. There is a specific type of betrayal that doesn't sting with confusion. It slices with clarity. You look back and realize it was never real. Not the affection, not the friendship, not the trust. What you thought was loyalty was simply utility. And when you stopped being useful, you were discarded without a second thought. This is betrayal by the narcissist, not someone with mere ego, but someone pathologically self-centered. Carl Jung warned of people who have built their entire identities on false personas, images designed to extract admiration, validation, and attention. To such individuals, others are not companions. They are instruments. At first, it feels intoxicating. They praise you, elevate you, make you feel like the center of their world. They are attentive, engaged, even emotionally intense. You feel seen in a way that's rare. But it's not you they're seeing. It's the role you're playing. Once your function is complete, once your presence no longer serves their goals, the energy shifts. They grow bored, critical, or outright cold. You bring the same warmth, but it's met with distance. You offer support, but receive silence. Then, often, betrayal arrives with brutal precision. They take credit for your work. They spread rumors. They twist shared moments into stories that paint you as unstable or dramatic. And they do it without guilt, because in their mind, you were just a chapter, not a character. This kind of betrayal devastates not because it's unpredictable, but because it makes you question your own perception. Was it all fake? Were you just naive? Did you mistake manipulation for connection? Don't. The narcissist is often skilled at performance. Their charm is calculated. Their generosity is strategic. Their empathy is minimal, if it exists at all. They know what affection looks like, but not what it feels like. So how do you protect yourself? First, pay attention to consistency over charisma. Do their words align with behavior across time? Do they show up when there's nothing to gain? Do they respect boundaries or only push them? Second, listen to your gut when it whispers discomfort. Narcissistic betrayal always starts with a feeling, something that doesn't add up, something too good to be true. Don't override that voice. And finally, stop excusing repeated violations. When someone uses you once, it's a warning. When they do it twice, it's a pattern. You can't love someone into integrity, and you can't heal someone who sees you as disposable. Walk away, not bitter, but wiser. 7. The quiet kind. Sometimes it doesn't come with a big argument or dramatic ending. It shows up in silence, missed calls, short replies, a sudden lack of effort. You look around and realize someone close to you has slowly checked out without ever saying goodbye. This kind of betrayal is hard to name because it doesn't look like betrayal. There's no obvious lie, no cheating, no direct attack. But the loyalty, the care, the honesty, they're gone. Carl Jung believed that when people avoid facing their own emotions, those feelings still act, but from the shadows. In this case, someone may not consciously plan to hurt you, but by ignoring their own discomfort, they slowly begin to pull away, drift, disconnect. You might notice they stop supporting you. They're not excited when you succeed. They don't ask how you're doing. At first, you tell yourself they're just busy. But deep down, something feels off. Why does this happen? Because your growth might make them feel insecure. Your truth might make them uncomfortable. Instead of being honest about it, they step back, quietly. They stop trying, and when you finally need them, they're no longer there. It's still betrayal. It's just a quiet one. The hardest part, it makes you question yourself. You wonder if you're being too sensitive. You try harder. You explain things. You give them the benefit of the doubt, again and again. But betrayal doesn't always wear a villain's face. Sometimes it looks like a friend who slowly stops showing up. Jung taught that when people refuse to look inward, they act outward in harmful ways, often without meaning to. But the impact is the same. You feel abandoned, confused, and hurt. So what can you do? Trust your feelings. If something feels wrong, it usually is. Don't chase people who make you doubt your worth. Pay attention to patterns, not excuses. And remember, real loyalty stays when it's inconvenient, not just when it's easy. Betrayal doesn't always explode. Sometimes it just fades. But the silence speaks just as loud as the knife. Let it teach you. Let it go. The sting of betrayal is sharp, but its truth is sharper. When someone turns against you, it feels personal, but it rarely is. It is not a reflection of your worth, but a mirror held up to the one who betrayed you. Their resentment, their envy, their hunger for control, all speak louder about them than your loyalty ever could. Carl Jung taught us that the human psyche is a layered terrain, with masks, shadows, and projections shaping our relationships more than we dare admit. When someone betrays you, they often aren't attacking who you are. They are fleeing from who they are. They cannot face their own darkness, so they cast it upon you. But betrayal, as painful as it is, also offers something rare: clarity. It shows you who someone really is when the performance ends. The loss of illusion is never easy, but it is always liberating. Let the pain teach you, not to close off your heart, but to open your eyes. Trust not based on words or shared history, but on consistency, character, and truth. And always remember, real loyalty doesn't falter when tested. It stands. Anything less was never loyalty at all.